You give me a chance here to be police minister. This killing of 84, it will go down.
How do you reduce 84 murders to 20?
I think the first one is that people kill at 3:30 today, and then tomorrow 4:30 is out on bail.
Yeah.
You need to first tighten the bail for the people.
So that may require constitutional change, because bail is not seen as...
That is our country. Why do we speak like the Constitution? And that's what irritates me. Why do you speak like the Constitution, It's the Holy Bible. Nobody can open the Holy Bible or the Holy Quran and say, no, I want to scratch Samuel 4. You can't. It's only the Holy Quran, the Bible and the Torah, and that is sacrosanct.
Yeah.
This Constitution...
It's not.
All I'm saying is that let's change some parts of the Constitution.
Yeah.
So we will rather die 84 people a day. Secondly, one of the most effective things to... I'm saying that in this country, you need a leader that is not scared of the gangsters.
Yeah.
Is not scared of all this. You know, you give me a chance here to be police minister. This killing of 84, it will go down. This thing of people going around taking buildings of people, you'll get out of that building day one. Before I can even go to my office, I'm going there to say, who's the owner of this building? You. Don't tell me about the courts. We must go to the court and state our case. We are not the criminals, they are the criminals.
You got two youngest MPs, 2022. What was the rationale in terms of your team there and so on? And what will be your big priorities as you are in the legislature? Because for those guys who are there, unlike you who may end up in the executive, right, you got to say, how do we change? Are there laws that are going to change? What can we expect from a PA-led legislative program?
All right, I think let me start with the two young ladies.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing that, the pain that is felt by every young black South African, they are being asked for experience. Now, you can't buy experience no matter how much money you have. But wealthy people, they will take their son or their daughters to go and work at JJ's business to gain the experience. Yeah. While with black people, they don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
Now, I've just decided as the leader of the PA, together with the leadership of the PA, that listen, it's time that we must not have people, when they are 50 years, they are still fighting to become a councillor in the community. Because that's what you're getting. 60-year-olds fighting to be a councillor. The DA has now, 2 months ago, made the lady that's 82 a councillor candidate. 82! A councillor candidate in Swartland. Yeah. We are saying, let's bring them. They might not know everything. Yeah. But imagine those 22-year-olds and that 20-year-old in 5 years. How much will they know? Do you think a person like that will still want to become a councillor and fight people for councillors? So I just think that companies should follow suit. Yeah. Bring in young people. Yeah. Bring in young people. Because there's a lot of sleeping in Parliament.
Yeah. And you don't think we're in that culture yet? Because if you look at their list, it's still a same old, same old.
You know, it's the old people that don't want to retire. People are still wanting to come back at the age of 65, 70. Then, you know, there's three big problems we are faced with in this country. The first one, for me, is safety and security. Yes. Where there's no safety and security, no country can exist. So once you need to sort out the safety and security problem. Yeah. The second problem that you need to sort out is energy.
Let's deal with just those two. Yeah. It's easier said than done. I mean, how do you reduce 84 murders to 20?
I think the first one is that people kill at 3:30 today, and then tomorrow 4:30 is out on bail. Yeah. You need to first tighten the bail for the people. You need a person killed today in Cape Town. Tomorrow is going to kill in PE. I don't think the synergy is really...
So that may require constitutional change, because bail is not seen as...
That is our country. Why do we speak like the Constitution? And that's what irritates me. Why do you speak like the Constitution, It's the Holy Bible. Nobody can open the Holy Bible or the Holy Quran and say, no, I want to scratch Samuel 4. You can't. It's only the Holy Quran, the Bible and the Torah, and that is sacrosanct. Yeah. This Constitution...
It's not.
We cannot have this document.
So how do you change the bail issue? Because remember, you are innocent until proven guilty. So the bail is meant to say, if you are not a flight risk, if you can guarantee that you'll come to court, you don't have to be in prison before you are found guilty.
No, but there's another clause that they don't use the courts. Yeah. The clause that says, if you have been accused of the same crime somewhere else,
Yeah.
it's also sufficient reason. So what I'm saying is that let's change some parts of the Constitution.
Yeah.
So we will rather die 84 people a day. Secondly, one of the most effective things to fight crime,
Yeah.
I know as an ex-criminal, was this reward system. That police file, JJ, that thing took people to jail.
Yeah.
People are hungry, so they're looking for my kids, but hey, get trouble. He's here at the shop.
Yeah.
And then at the moment we are depending only on the cops.
That's called Mpimpa Hotline. Remember that?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to it.
No, there was police file. It was a program.
Yeah.
I know
on
because
SABC, yeah.
I was on that program. And
Or did they put you there as a
they were looking for us.
They were
But my
looking for you.
friend
Yeah.
was
That's how
looking-
you're caught.
And then my father was watching TV and he looked at my friend. He said to my mother, this guy, I saw him on TV. He was called the police. But my point I'm trying to say, so we have a serious problem with crime.
Yeah.
Do you know that all the Serbian mafias,
Yeah.
the Russian mafias,
Yeah.
the Nigerian Black X mafia, all the head officers are here
Sure.
in South Africa. All the most wanted criminals are coming to South Africa because our things are so lax.
So loose. Yeah.
Do you know that 94% of all killings that happen by firearm are police-issued firearms that were stolen?
My God.
Now, it is better not to give them firearms for a certain point of time because the firearms are killing the citizens. I'm just saying these things are practical things that needs to be changed. You can just equip the police. You can't be a policeman. And you can't even walk from here to there, then you are tired. Some of the policemen are so obese.
Sure.
Give him a choice to say you are getting 3 months leave, come back.
Lose some weight.
He must inspire confidence. You know you can steal this bottle of water in front of him and walk. He will not even run after you because you know he's not going to run 10, 20 meters. Energy.
Yeah.
Energy, I want to tell South Africans, it's self-inflicted. We are self-inflicting this ESCOM thing. There's no power.
Yeah.
It's downright stupidity of the highest order. South Africa has sun. South Africa is sun for solar. South Africa has wind for wind power at night. Sun during the day, wind during the night. South Africa has vast fields of land for solar farms.
Yeah.
South Africa must build transmission to be able to transmit energy from one place
Yeah.
to
You don't
another.
think that they're beginning to sort it out? I mean,
With so much red tape.
With a
Come
new
in
guy.
and be a minister. You know, you look at Minister Gweremantash.
Yeah.
He really wants to explore the possibility of taking our gas out.
yeah.
We're sitting on the world's 8th largest gas deposit. But now you must talk to people that talk about the scorpions are going to die, the sheep is going to, let them die. The people are already dying with load shedding, there's no oxygen for their machines. We need decisive leadership. We need leadership that comes in and say, listen, now we are putting the citizens first, not the market. The market will find its niche.
Yeah.
In whatever you do. But the citizens seem to struggle. And the third biggest problem that nobody speaks about that we're having, and I think is the most serious one, 18 million people in South Africa are on welfare.
Sure.
And our government breaks about
It's
something.
actually 26 million if you add the 500 rand one.
Yes. And our government breaks about it, and it's not something to break about.
Yeah.
You must be ashamed that your citizens are not self-sufficient,
Yeah.
that your citizens are getting welfare and SASSA. It's the mindset we need to change. Now, if you have a third of your citizens on welfare,
Social grants, yeah.
so, I remember I was in China, and I'll never forget this incident, JJ. I went to buy my son a toy. I was late, so I was early, I'm like, I still have 2 hours, let me get him a toy. So I go to the toy shop. I get to the toy shop, there's a boy in front of the toy shop with a bell.
Yeah.
He's disabled. He's got a bell in the right hand, and he's got his handkerchief here to wipe the spit that's coming out of his mouth. And all he does is tilling. And I was looking at this thing like, and I called the manager. I said, may I ask you something? I'm curious. I said, who really work here? He says, yes. He brings attention to it. I said, does he get a salary? He says, yes, we pay him. In South Africa, that man who sat at home, we have people that's trying to break their arms,
Yeah.
paying doctors, corrupt doctors sometimes, put me on welfare.
Sure.
Our people have stopped dreaming. I am saying that we need to bring that to be in a wheelchair. We have one of our best people in the PAs in a wheelchair, the best. Do you know? He's so smart, so active, whatever. I'm saying those type of people that's in a wheelchair, someone in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Give him a real job in government. Let him sit at a reception. Just take people off welfare.
Wow, guys, really powerful video from Gayton Mckenzie here. And you know, lately I just stumbled on a video by a Mozambican foreigner who is actually speaking a lot about all the things that Gayton Mckenzie has been speaking about. And actually, in my own understanding, he actually supports most of the views that Gayton Mckenzie and the Patriotic Alliance have had about foreigners in South Africa, about how foreigners are taking all the jobs in South Africa and all that. This is coming from a foreigner now. And for me, it really hit me. Let's just quickly listen to what this Mozambican foreigner has to say about most of the policies of Gayton Mckenzie and the Patriotic Alliance, and I'll be back for some really powerful analysis on this.
Umuntu wangaphandle une power yokuthi afika la njengoba singafundanga kanje acela umsebenzi awuthole wena wala akusekho lula ufuna imali eningi plus ufuna ukufakwe emaphepheni so umlungu uyaluza ngawe so kungcono athatha umuntu wangaphandle ngoba yini i-controlling system ye-government yi-weak.
Nawe njengomuntu ophuma ngaphandle but ubona i-situation sokuthi abantu bala eMzansi bona bayasidelineka basithola isipani and wena njengomuntu wangaphandle nina manixoxa nje nithini nge-situation maniyibona nje la
sibonga
niyibona ukuthi
ukubona thina mina into engizokutshela yona akublemiwi siyablema thina abantu abangaphandle but i-government yiyo semanje ihluleka ukucontrola lento leyo yincisha wena umnikazi yinikeza i-chance umuntu lo uza ngaphandle abelungu nabo mathi bababheka babona ukuthi hawo wena government wenza so nathi ithi senze the same.
Usho ukuthi no government wenza same naye?
Yes.
Wawusho kanjani?
Ukufika kwami mina la ngifike ngegovernment eka de Klerk. Benga kuzothola umuntu wama municipality ophuma ngaphandle. Kuthiwa naye company yama municipality kunomuntu weforeigner lapha. No. Noma ipi property yaka government. Bewuthola umuntu waka la asebenza lapha. Manje uma uthi uyayibhekisisa ngokutshela njengama-municipality ukukhatha le nto le hamba wafika bathola bayakhatha uzothi uma uthi uyabheka ngisho ne-supervisor yakhona le yilapha umuntu wangaphandle
wena mhlawumbe njengomuntu waseMozambique uma senixoxa nabanye abantu baseMozambique niya-understanda maybe ukuthi why ama-South Africans mhlawumbe ezigcina sethi abantu bangaphandle ayabahamba
siya-understanda ngoba uma uthi ubheka isimo isizwe sesiya phansi imisebenzi ayisekho so ukuthi kuze kube netoyitoyi le ukuthi mabahambe bafuna ukuthi yona le misebenzi eyishiyekileyo at least ibe yabo bakhona ukusebenza nawo
so ngamanye amazwi nawe makuthiwa ubuse Mozambique nawe ubungasho same thing mhlawumbe
kunjalo vela noma manje senkhaya ngibona ukuthi phela umsebenzi awusekho ene nanku lo muntu ngithathele umsebenzi ngizoyibeka kanjalo angithi uyayizwa ukuthi ngithini
so ungasho ukuthi khona ngeke ukuthi mhlawumbe ngoba ama-South Africans azonda abanye abantu bangaphandle kodwa ingenxa yama-opportunities ukuthi
ukuthi ama-South African azonda abantu bangaphandle abazondani ngokuthi bazondana ngenye into bazondana ngomsebenzi ngoba njengamanje uma uthi uyabheka i-half ye-South African abasebenzi uma uthi uyabheka noma liphi foreigner ulithola endleleni liye emsebenzini hlangana naye endleleni ekuseni nje uye emsebenzini
ibhudozo likhuluma iqiniso kodwa yazi
ngizwisisa ukuthi ngithini khona la ubabona ama-nice ones uma uthi uyamuzwa umuntu okona kukhuluma wayezwa ukuthi hayi asumuntu wala uye emsebenzini eteksini ekuseni uzwa kukhuluma lapho yezwa ukuthi hayi wonke abantu abakhuluma lana asabantu balana abantu bangaphandle kodwa umuntu wakhona emsebenzini basebenza bona so wena njengomnikazi welizwe uthini uhlele phansi yena uyasebenza and sometimes illegally angarejistwanga yena self angana nepass angana nepermit uyasebenza wena unepass unama right wonke uhlele phansi special kuyo le ndawo esihleli kuyo le kwele kanjalo endawo ngathi zisaseni bu safety nyana amakhampani la afana nabo ma spa checkers yayiwo ngathi ku right nyana amanye amashop or amakhampani nyana athi sithize or yona le misebenzi yama kitchen or I garden boy yona le ama car wash yonke lezi zinto le amashop yamakula angeke ukuthola umuntu walapha asebenza lapha kusebenza bona
Ujazi into isho iqiniso kodwa yini bese ukuthi mhlambe abantu bangaphandle bona besebenza ngazo ukuthi abak understand lokho ukuthi hayi ngoba sikuzonda ukuthi umnyama kodwa mhlambe uthola ukuthi ingoba abantu ba angry for ukuthi abawuthola ama opportunities manje
angithi uyabona kunjani butwama yena lo muntu lo angaphandle lo angithi sengilana ngiyadla njengoba ngibona ngidla uma usethe yekela hamba ingqondo seyiba ngoba kwakhona le ngibuya khona ngazi ukuthi ngizofika ngithi ngiyenzani sengithembele khona la ngiphume le ngenhlupheko nami ngiyabona ukuthi hayi isinkwanyana sikho obvious sizolo angeke ngihambe mina uma ngikutshela kanje ngakutshela history yami mina sengiboshiwe more than 30 times 30 times
for
illegal immigration
okay bezophuma kanjani
kulula phela angithi mabakubopha ukuvalela for lamalanga bakuvalela wona ema police station or elindela bese bakuthumela bakudeport uma bakudeport bafika khona nayi South Africa nayi Gayton la bafika bakujumpise ngapha khona la zibonele nali lizo lakho
hayi ukuthi
bazokudrop endlini la uphuma khona uthola ukuthi laba kudropa khona maybe kuyendlini is another 1000 km emuva kulula ukuthi ngibuyele neway ukuthi ngiyemuva.
Yeah, brilliant guys. So it's really difficult, you know, the whole crime rate and unemployment rate and problems with illegal immigration in South Africa. For me, it's really disheartening. I found a video, a channel on YouTube, Grime, that's the title of the channel, that actually captures, I think from the CCTV camera, most of the crimes that actually take place in South Africa. Coming from an outside perspective, being an outsider, for example, watching these videos, I'm really shocked and really sometimes I feel ashamed for what, you know, many of the perpetrators of these crimes are actually blacks in South Africa have resorted to be able to survive. But I do not feel kind of like that kind of embarrassed in that regard, as I know that most of the reasons for these issues actually have deep-rooted historical roots that actually have to be really objectively analyzed before coming to logical conclusion. But for most of the crimes, most of these crimes I see in South Africa, most of these videos I see here, actually really embarrassing, really touching, really cringy for most of these people, especially these blacks or coloreds. I don't know how they are anyway. I know there are lots of whites also who actually perpetrate a lot of crimes. I remember the Botha story about the lady who was actually stabbed many times in her neck, and to see the perpetrators of that crime as actually also white South Africans as well, to actually see the fact that most of our citizens of such a powerful land, such a powerful nation as South Africa have to resort to these kinds of acts of, you know, really embarrassing, crime scenes and all that, actually really makes me feel so sad. You see, I know that life can actually put us into desperate circumstances sometimes, where we take some kind of like actions or acts in a way to kind of like survive. It's a normal human instinct. It's kind of like a basic normal human instinct to survive. But when it now comes to the extent of hurting someone else, as we see here in these tapes, in these videos, where a lot of these crimes actually keep going on in South Africa, people get robbed on the streets, people have their phones snatched from them on the streets, people actually have gadgets anyway, both in broad daylight, both in the shops, in the streets and all that in South Africa. And a lot of these people actually having to resort to this kind of living to be able to sustain their existence, I think is really, really unfortunate. And that's why now I come to understand the passion of the Patriotic Alliance in trying to fight against illegal immigration, illegal foreigners. But also, this might not also necessarily be a problem of illegal immigration. But I remember many times when I listened to Gayton Mckenzie's interview on Mark G's podcast, he spoke about how growing up as a youth, he was the youth in South Africa at the time. The colored youth were really angry people, and there were two options: is either you actually confront or go against law, or actually succumb to, I think it was the apartheid laws at the time, and many of them actually decided to go against law. I remember the video I spoke about on Scheme's channel, where he interviewed this guy who was actually arrested multiple times. I think his name is Mofokeng. And he spoke about how, violence became an art in South Africa, during his period when he was at his prime. You see, so in other words, violence sort of like became an art, and all that. So, and we can see that kind of thing here in most of these clips I'm actually, watching here. And I'm hoping you guys can also see where it appears that most of these guys have actually taken this whole snatching of phones on the streets, snatching of bags on the streets from pedestrians, people taking a walk. When, you see them pretending to be taking a walk and all that, and the next thing you see, they snatch the phones and all that. It appears that it has actually become an art. Violence seems to have become an art in South Africa, and this is not how a society can function. This is not how a society with so much potential like South Africa can function. I know that there might be a lot less resources, from the perspective of the government to fund policing and all that, and that's why, if you listen to my video yesterday on Neil De Beer, when he was actually praising the KZN police chief, I think it's called Lieutenant Colonel Mkwanezi, for taking a fire-to-fire stand against the criminals in KZN. I think this is actually, now that I'm actually coming to in contact with the danger, that actually pervades in South African society. There are ladies who sit just at the front porch of their yards and come and suddenly a car, stops by across them, and, they have their phones snatched from them. People do not even feel at peace. You can't even take a run at peace. You never can tell who is a criminal. No one knows who is who. You don't know if probably walking along the street or even answering a phone call, somebody might actually come approach you, have a knife pointed to you or gun and take your phone. I even saw a clip where one guy with a whole backpack in the street had the backpack taken away from him peacefully, and a lot of people just keep walking, were walking across, because it had become a norm. Most South Africans have become numbed to this because they feel paralyzed. They really do not understand, how to react and all that. And police isn't, able to sort of like guard, the society in that regard. And for me, this is really personal. This is actually a lot to learn, because even in my country, Nigeria, growing up in Nigeria for many, many years before transiting out and out, you're trying to travel across the continent, trying to push for my academic career and all that. I've really never seen this level of decadence in society. Growing up in Nigeria, for example, at the place where I grew up, it's actually, a reserved region, so to speak. Not so reserved anyway, because there were still lots of, these pocket crimes here and there taking place. One of the major crimes you hear in Nigeria is what they call, one chance. So, in other words, you get into a taxi, but that taxi is an organized syndicate of kidnappers and all that, and you are whisked, as soon as you get into the taxi. But one thing I understood about crime is that Nigerians do not joke when it comes to crime. It's jungle justice out there. So before you can become a criminal in Nigeria, you have to think twice, and you have to be top of the game. You have to be really sharp individual, especially at the level of robbery physically, okay? But at the level of the physical ones, which I'm actually seeing here now in South Africa, which I'm actually seeing many of these clips in South Africa, it is something that you hardly see, because Nigerians don't joke. They could actually burn you down. You know, it's kind of like also what probably just Gayton Mckenzie might argue as is an abuse of law, abuse of human rights, so to speak, in that many criminals are growing up. I saw this a lot. They would actually, some criminals who would come to rob early in the morning, for example, at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. Sometimes when they are unsuccessful, we have, you know, the yard, the neighborhood, so to speak, we're really on the tip of their toes, alert and, you know, ready to go all out when they hear these kinds of screams and all that. Of in Nigeria, it's called ole. So that's a colloquial pidgin English representation of a thief. So it's ole. Immediately you hear that, everyone gets their instruments, gets their weapons. They're looking for this guy, and most of the time, 80% of the cases I observed growing up as a young lad in Nigeria, they were always caught, and it's jungle justice. Many ended up being burnt with tires. So there were usually tires on the streets waiting for, you know, these kinds of incidents where they just burn them. And, you know, unfortunately, many Nigerians became even numb to seeing most of these dead bodies on the streets. But this was one way in which the society ensured that it was safe against physical robberies like this. So, but in seeing this kind of incidences in South Africa, for me, it really breaks my heart, because I really do not know how it must feel living in South Africa. You know, I don't know really, with so much great potential. I see so much potential for South Africa. And I think police has to step up their game. I really don't know how it would be. I really don't know the kind of wisdom the police commissioner Senzo Mchunu might need to have at this moment to really step up in the game with policing in South Africa. I remember Neil de Beer actually speaks about how policing isn't just something that is actually just given to anyone, but policing is an education. You have to have an education to be a police, okay? And we usually say that, you know, the police in Nigeria, for example, now going to West Africa, trying to compare West Africa and South Africa. Also in Ghana, I've also experienced and witnessed some of the actions of the police in Ghana. Those guys don't play, they don't joke. These guys are on the tip of their toes. They are ready to pounce on criminals, and that's why these countries are relatively safe. For example, in Ghana, you hardly hear of thefts or criminal, you know, these kinds of gang issues coming up there. I don't know, probably if maybe it's a function of the police, or it's a function of the fact that the government have decided that they won't allow or spare loopholes in the constitution to allow these kinds of things happen. But in a country like South Africa, for example, it's really difficult to interpret why there's this kind of high crime rate, this kind of, you know, problems with borders and illegal foreigners. I know that many of the videos I've made on this video have analyzed the root causes. I remember I spoke about how Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi of the Home Office, previous Home Office minister, spoke about, you know, took the problem of the porous borders back to Mandela in South Africa's search for a sort of solidarity post-apartheid, you know, South Africa. But also at the same time, this is now 30 years down the line. There actually should have been actions to have actually sealed this border, because the border, for example, the border of a country, you don't joke with it. I've lived in Scandinavia, in the northern parts of Europe, what they call the Scandinavian countries, for a decade now, I think. And I can actually say that, you know, the border of a nation is key. You know, you don't get into these regions in Sweden, in Norway, in Iceland, in Denmark, in Finland, you know, without being you know, sort of like identified. There's no way you can escape the border guard. There's no, it's unfathomable. Like I really still cannot even understand or figure out or even think about how a criminal could actually break through the border systems here. They are so smart. And so the border, for example, the border of a nation is key. You don't joke with that. And so I think this is one area South Africa needs to really work on. But also the problem of crime in South Africa, I know it has to do a lot with policing. And police has to now also be at the top of their game. I don't know if probably it might have to do with the kind of police that's been employed in South Africa. I don't know if it's the kind of people who have offered to be police, because many times also, you know, I'm a Christian. I usually also say that policing, to be a police is also a calling, you see. And if we can have dedicated people who have this calling within them, not just as a result of the fact that, you know, people just want to have a job, but a calling is, in that regard, is a response to a purpose. It's a response to something that actually is, you know, has been deemed, you know, as a driver to giving you fulfillment. And so if we can have more of these kinds of policemen who actually understand that it's a calling, it's a service to the society. Like I see Lieutenant General Mckenzie at KZN, I believe that man understands that his duty is a calling. He's called on a purpose to keep KZN safe, and he understands that purpose. He understands that calling. In a speech I saw him making, he actually was warning the police in KZN not to abandon their police roles to start going into politics. This is his philosophy here. He believes that a police should be a policeman or a policewoman should actually focus on policing rather than mixing police with politics, you see. So you can see that he has a really firm, focused gaze on his role as a police commissioner in KZN. And that speaks of the perspective where he understands that the policing is a calling. So if we can have more police in South Africa who understand that their duty and role in South Africa is to really protect the land, and also the fact that the government also has to wake up. It's really difficult, I only started really studying South Africa just about 2-3 years now, and many of your comments as well also help me to understand the land. I'm not in South Africa, I'm an outsider, and I usually enjoy the outsider perspective to many things because I'm able to help you see from a bird's eye view what many of you might not actually be able to see in the land in there. And so, from this perspective, I see that policing in South Africa would need a lot of government support. I don't know really what the ANC has been doing for all these 30 years. I see most of your comments, you blast the ANC. I'm slowly understanding why that much pain lies in your hearts as South Africans, because it's really tough for such a really racially and culturally sensitive land as South Africa. I think policing in a way even has to undergo a lot of seminars, a lot of really careful thought in thinking through what policing, the future of policing, in South Africa should be. There should be multiple scenarios, there should be multiple alternatives, there should be multiple thinkers to really think about what kind of policing future South Africa needs to serve this kind of society and the kind of history it has gone through, and actually what it's actually about. I think that many, as I usually repeat, and I will keep on repeating it, I think that the wider Africa has not really understood South Africa and South Africans. And, I know many people actually say that South Africans are xenophobic, and especially the black South Africans. I'm slowly trying to really see and interpret that xenophobic nature of the South Africans, maybe the blacks or the colored South Africans against other South Africans, as a form of patriotism that seems to be evolving. It's emanating from the society. It's a voice, it's a scream. It's like you heard this Mozambican foreigner in this video actually spoke about how, many of the black South Africans now, for example, at the time of FW de Klerk, couldn't find work in a municipality, you see. But now, in this day, especially the black, what I mean by the black foreigners would never be able to find the kind of work many black foreigners now do, have in South Africa under FW de Klerk. And so he actually also says that the ANC is also culpable in actually raising the bar for the foreigners and actually denigrating the opportunities that could be given to the South Africans. And so that imbalance, so to speak, now has really given birth to a sort of like anger that has actually now morphed into a form of patriotism for South Africa, going forward, both by the blacks, the coloreds, the Indians, and all that. And so every cry of the other African nations for xenophobia or attributing a xenophobic character to South Africans right now, the way I see and the way I'm slowly understanding South Africa is that many South Africans do not care if they are seen or called xenophobic anymore. But what I see is that they are slowly embracing a new patriotism that is emerging out of that characteristic or the term of being called a South African. And that's what I'm slowly understanding about the land. And so for such a society, with all this racial sensitivity, cultural sensitivity, really sensitive history and all that, police in South Africa and this whole thing with its home office and all that will really need to step up their game. The government, I really hope that the government of national unity might be able to stand up to this responsibility, because I saw many of your comments with Leon Scriber's interview I made yesterday, and how some people actually thought that Leon Scriber is slow, and said they should have given the task to Gayton Mckenzie, because they feel that Gayton Mckenzie actually has a much more bullet approach to tackling crime and tackling illegal immigration and all that. But everyone, I understand that everything has a time and a season. Okay, Gayton Mckenzie might actually be in his position now as sports minister because of this time. This time actually demands him to be there to work on probably the cause of unity, first of all. And then if that's patriotism, I'm actually beginning to really study and understand that is slowly emerging in South Africa. If it gets to a certain 100%, and when it gets to that 100%, and then you transfer Gayton Mckenzie to Home Office, or you transfer him to police, I think South Africa is going to be on a perfect course in probably even as less as 1 week, because now that patriotic spirit of both blacks, whites, Indians, whoever it is, because these criminals I'm actually show here in this video are actually stealing from everyone. They're stealing from the whites, they're stealing from the Indians, they're stealing from the colors, stealing from their fellow blacks. It's really unbelievable. There's no kind of like solidarity, racial solidarity, in this regard. And I really love that term, racial solidarity. I would probably expect that, probably because if there's a black or a colored who has now become become a robber, so to speak, or has decided that way would be the way in which he sustains his existence in South Africa, because of the similar history that blacks have actually gone through in South Africa. When you see a fellow black, you shouldn't rob their phones, for example. You shouldn't want to rob them of their, of their belongings, because you recognize that this is a fellow black person who is actually struggling with you, so to speak. And this is my understanding as an outsider, trying to really understand. But yet you see these perpetrators of these crimes trying to even rob their fellow blacks, try to disenfranchise the struggle of the fellow black who is actually trying to make ends meet in the daily struggles of life, being black in South Africa. Okay, they still yet rob them from their phones, try to even shoot the black policemen, and it's really crazy. So the ANC, the government in South Africa, and I really applaud the citizens. I really applaud this patriotism that is emerging out of South Africa now. I know South Africa has gone through a really bitter history. I know that it appears that, the wealth is concentrated among the whites in South Africa, as many people have actually claimed. I know that the wealth is actually controlled by a few, but then there has to be a sort of like, cooperation. I've always believed in this perspective. I have a theory, and I'm going to be speaking a lot about it, in my coming videos. I have a theory that, I don't know if most of you might be Christians or Muslim anyway, but from the Christians, for those of us who are Christians, I'm Christian, I have this understanding from the repopulation of the world, from the generation of Noah, you see. So Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, okay? I believe that, the 3 of them were planned. God actually planned that these 3 would move together in trying to repopulate the earth. But we could see that, every time they tried in the Bible, even when you see every time one tribe actually tries to separate itself and function alone, it actually functions at its lowest, at its worst. So if you read the Bible carefully, you'd hear that there's this story about Babel. Okay, so it was, I think, a story of one particular tribe that tried to really function away from from their brothers, so to speak, and try to really grow, and you build a tower that would get to the heavens and all that, and that caused a lot of trouble. So one theory actually argues that most of the coloreds and blacks that actually were spread to the ends of the earth in that story in the Bible were actually those that actually were met by many of the Europeans who encountered them during the discovery. So if you read history, you read about Marco Polo meeting some of these. Marco Polo met, I think, I don't remember anyway, but they were of the tribes of these coloreds, Hamites, so to speak, okay? There were also the natives in America that were actually met by, the guys who discovered the Americas, I think the Spaniards and all that at the time. Even Vasco da Gama, for example, when he had traveled to South Africa, there were Hamites that they actually met. So there's this theory now in history. We're still trying to understand and really go through a revisionist history that argues that the most of the Hamites, right? And when I say Hamites now, I just speak about from the descendants of of harm in that way that actually spread out from that destruction of Babel. Most of them who were met by the Western, the descendants of Japheth, as they moved to discover the other lands, you see, were actually spread to the ends of the earth from that particular incident. And so it appears that the repopulation of the earth really needed a sort of like cooperation between these races. Each race has its own gifts. You see, many times I've worked with many whites. I've actually worked with what many of you would call whites, many Europeans, so to speak. I've worked with many Asians, in my academic career. I've worked with many black, and I understand that these races have different strengths. I, for example, am black. I'm born originally Nigerian, African. I understand my strengths. I understand that there are some things naturally that come to me that do not naturally come for the European, for example. There are some things that come naturally to me that do not come naturally from the Asian. And so if we can all bring up all our strengths together to really function, I think we'll have the top of the top performance at the level of humanity, and then really have excellent levels of growth and development as human people. And this is one of the reasons I really believe that, South Africa was placed in Africa to be able to show an example of what the different races in this earth and in the world can actually achieve when they work together. And I really hope that purpose will not be abused, because there's so much potential in that land. I can see it, I can feel it. I'm not South African, but the more I study, the more I see people. I don't know if you guys watched the last battle with Israel, Adesanya, and I think he's the I don't remember his name now, Circus or something like that. But he's now the champion. He's actually taken over from Israel. Israel didn't seem like he wanted to fight in that battle anyway. But now the reigning champion in South Africa is in the UFC championships. He's now South African. We saw a lot of the performance of the athletes in the Olympics. We saw South Africa really doing a lot of inventions, Elon Musk and all that. So there's so much potential, and I really don't think that such a land should be having this kind of problems. But anyway, we know that the earth is not perfect. We as existence of this earth are not perfect beings, and so there's bound to be ruptures in society. But South Africa has, I believe, a lot of potential to really curb a lot of these crime rates I'm seeing in these videos I've shown you, and these issues with illegal immigration. And I really hope that the government of national unity can wake up, step up to their game. If we had more the likes of Sports Minister Gayton, Mckenzie, who have a passion for South Africa, can wake up, because it's a really different ball game. It's a really different political atmosphere in South Africa. I tell you, I'm from South Africa. I've been studying South Africa. I'm from West Africa. I've been studying West African history and West African political economy for years, and I can tell you that it's a totally different politics I see in South Africa and in West Africa, and I'm sure most of Africa. And so I really hope that the government can actually step up to their game, really try to address these whole issues with crime. It's embarrassing for me. I would confess, I'm totally embarrassed by most of these incidences I actually watch in this video, and I really hope that this can actually take a positive turn. But anyway, I don't know, what do you guys think about Gayton Mckenzie's speech here and the commentary? Share your thoughts. Let's hear from you in the comments.